So welcome to Uniting Business Live. We are with the United Nations Global Compact first ever virtual summit. And usually I'm there in person in New York. And of course, the wonderful opportunity is that we are able to have people join us from all around the world. I'm in Hawaii. It's 9 p.m. for me. And I think it's 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. for our wonderful guests from across the Middle East region. And it's, of course, the middle of the night on the East Coast of the US. So I am very privileged to lead global partnerships at the new Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory at Arizona State University. ASU is one of the largest universities in the US. It's number one for innovation for the last 6 years in a row, with Stanford at number 2 and MIT at number 3. And it's also number 1 in the US for impact for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as I was previously New Zealand's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva, during the negotiation of the SDGs, I have a special place in my heart for those, and am delighted to co-chair across the university with the Dean of Thunderbird, Sanjeev Kagram, our cross-ASU SDG task force. So I am absolutely thrilled to be here tonight with our wonderful awardee and finalists from across the Middle East North Africa region. And we are with the We Empower UN SDG Challenge, we standing for Women Entrepreneurs. And we are delighted to co-chair this vibrant program with Vital Voices Global Partnership. I wanted to begin with a quote from Melinda Gates, who recently wrote, "This is how we can emerge from the pandemic in all of its dimensions, by recognizing that women are not just victims of a broken system, but architects of a better one." And so for me, it was such a wonderful quote, because here we are in 2020, the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, and yet in no country in the world has full gender equality yet been achieved. In only 8 countries in the world is full gender equality even legislated. So the challenges are still great, and yet we know how much important work women do across the world, and particularly in the important region of Middle East, North Africa. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you this evening, very briefly, and then I'm going to introduce them in more detail, our 2 awardees for the region, Sarah El Batouti, the founder of eConsult, and Daniel Sharif, founder and CEO of Switch. Sarah is from Egypt and Daniel from Pakistan. We also have with us our finalists from across the region, Mayada Abu Jaber, the founding partner of the World of Letters from Jordan, Rana El Chamaitli, the founder of The Little Engineer from Lebanon, and Sana Azam, founder, MENA Women Speakers from the UAE. So welcome to you all. It's fantastic that you're with us. And I'm going to start off introducing everybody briefly and asking the same question, which is really what inspired you to overcome all the obstacles there are to setting up a business, becoming the CEO, the founder, and what have you had to do to pivot during this very difficult time of COVID, when we know that women are the most affected in this pandemic. So Sarah, as the founder of eConsult, which is an award-winning architecture and environment strategy company, you're really changing the way that buildings are made in Egypt. And I love the fact that your mission is to make affordable green buildings that save energy, water, and materials. I know that you try as much as possible to use recycled materials in your interior designs, and been on another panel on the circular economy. I know that you also aim to use local labor for projects, and that you're an equal pay certified women-owned company with a staff that is 50% in a male-dominated sector. So super impressive. Tell us a little bit about your origin story. What was your inspiration, and how have you had to pivot during COVID?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on the panel. Uh, the story begins with this idea where a love for architecture, but I'm a fourth generation architect, and I've been very preoccupied with what it is that makes, you know, these spaces work for us on the human scale. And especially in our part of the world with the increasing heat and the extreme heat, I began to think about cooling, and I began to think about the aspects of indigenous knowledge that we seem to be missing out on. So it started by realizing that we have so much knowledge, local knowledge, that we need to merge with technology and how we work in order to localize and make buildings that just simply work right for us, as accessible as possible and as affordable as possible. So my inspiration was to see how people built along all of these eras and how they adapted and how they mitigated it within themselves in various cultures, and just to bring that back in a language that is suitable for our contemporary cities. With COVID, it's, we are now spending even more time indoors, and our health and the spaces that we occupy calls for a reevaluation of how our schools are built and how our homes work for us. Of course, it's been very one of the positive things about COVID-19 is that seeing the reduction in carbon emissions, seeing people use communication more, seeing less transportation, and genuinely less carbon emission footprint in how you work. So we immediately started a work from home model. We had a very strange time adapting as designers, because our working hours are very chaotic. So we had 6 days a week as opposed to five, and we had shorter days. And that worked for us. Also, being a green platinum office ourselves, we're very, very well aware of our environment and hygiene, using less paper, etc. So it's been very educational for us, but I don't think we can go back to the ways we were. And I think a re-evaluation and just sitting back and realizing that the world is changing and how we occupy the spaces is a real eye-opener.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I just realized too that that quote from Melinda Gates about being architects of a better future, of course, fits you in so many ways. And I love that that positive way in which you've thought of this difficult COVID experience as transformational and how that's helped you reevaluate. So that's such a wonderful, positive way of looking at it too. And I guess this more flexible working can be very helpful when we're trying to juggle kids at school. I have a son here who's online. We're still in lockdown in Hawaii all these months on. So yeah, that's such a great way of looking at it. Thank you. Chloe, I think we were going to show just a couple of slides to explain Danielle's business. And while Chloe brings those up, Danielle Sharaf from Pakistan is the founder of Switch, which is a mobile solutions company. And it's really focused on both content-rich SMS messages and also interactive voice response for mobile users in developing countries. And I know that Danielle has expanded from Pakistan into Afghanistan, and I think also Zimbabwe. So really tough markets. Now, the focus for Switch is their mission mobile for change. And the reason that they use text message and audio is because 65% of people in Pakistan still use basic mobile telephone services with no internet access. Now, that's almost impossible for us to imagine when we're so used to the internet. Now, with COVID, I know that Danielle has had to pivot pretty significantly and has been pushing out text messages and audio content on the virus, on COVID itself. Now, my old eyes are not going to be able to see that screen. I think we need to double click to maximize, and I'm hoping that people can actually see a little bit of some of the applications that include also agriculture and financial inclusion, as well as education, which we're going to be hearing more about from our other panelists tonight, and also career development. So it's been very interesting to see how this service has expanded now to help people find jobs online. And finally, Danielle is now reaching almost 3 million rural Pakistanis and translating into their regional languages. So wishing Danielle could be here with us tonight, but she will be on a session tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time in the Target Gender Equality Lounge, if anyone happens to be up and able to watch. So I'm now going to transition to Mayada Abu Jaber and hear more about the World of Letters, which is a social enterprise to promote quality education in the Middle East. And it looks as though you're doing an amazing amount of very varied work. So I'm not going to steal your thunder, Mayada. I know that you have slides, so I'm going to stop there and let you tell us all about your work.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for inviting me for the panel, and hello, the fellow awardees and finalists. I'm going to share my slide. I'm going to just blank this until I get my slides up. 1 minute, please. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah.
Sorry about this. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, so my story began, this is the World of Letters, founded in 2006 as a social enterprise to foster dignity, pride, and equity among youth in the Arab region. Big words, but my story really started here. Back in 2006, when I was teaching, and I realized that the Arab region, the real pain was that the Arab region was misread, misunderstood, and misinterpreted, because we had people who were in the private schools taking IG and IB programs, and they had all this content that was very engaging in English, yet the vast majority also in public schools had Arabic content that wasn't as engaging. So I thought maybe the true pain is that we really do not represent ourselves well because we do not have higher level skills. I also found this, which shows that Arabic literacy crisis in the region. The majority of us in the Arab region have problem with reading and writing, even the Arabic language. So I decided maybe we need to work on the early grades, because that's where the trajectory of one in the future changes. So we decided to do early childhood education books. However, we knew that young children were really fixated with technology. So we introduced an augmented reality app to it. So basically the book dances and there are all these characters that sings, and you see it in another world. You need a tablet, you need the phone for that. And during COVID, what we did is our hard copy books, we actually are putting them online so they can download the books with the augmented reality app. After that, we realized that in order to have Arabic books that are very similar to the IB or IGCSE, we need to use a multidisciplinary approach. So we began to produce environmental education books, basically focusing on water conservation, energy conservation, and solid waste. This was in the informal sector. It was used in schools, and we continue to produce books. These are books for the history, and the list here are also books that we've been using. Some we were contracted, and others we actually use them in schools, public schools and private schools. But as we continued on, about 6 years ago, we realized that there was another pain: the girls education. Girls were educated but not employed. In the MENA region, we have gender parity with access of girls to primary education, a reverse gender gap when it comes to girls attending grade 4 and 8, and they're achieving better than boys, and we don't even have a problem in STEM. The problem is that the transition into workforce is among the lowest in the world. And Jordan is probably the second lowest in the region, about 14%. The MENA region is 22%. So what should we do? And the bigger pain also is the acceptance of the Jordanian society to women working. So if 96% would say, yeah, we accept, by the time they're asked questions like, what if they get married? What if they have to leave their children? What if it's a mixed workplace? The number goes down to 26%. So our solution was, we need to do a collaborative movement for women economic empowerment. So we came together, 70 women in partnership with Khalil Gibran, a funded project, and we began to work on 4 pillars: on policies, on education, on communities, and on private sector. So this is a campaign we did. Since we're a content development company, we created a campaign called Breaking Glass Doors, which means we want to move out, go out of the house. It's like similar to breaking glass ceiling. We worked on the harassment laws in the labor law. We don't have an article on sexual harassment, and there were still restricted jobs for women and hours. So this was the campaign we did. We also worked on, we're policy advisors for Ministry of Education, on gender sensitization of the curriculum. It was a study I had done at Brookings, and later on we worked with the Ministry of Education to introduce gender bias, specifically with women participation in the economy. Finally, we needed a more hands-on approach. So we're working on a demand-driven training program, employment program, by working with the private sector, seeing their needs, so almost like HR arms, doing training programs and developing content such as career guidance, work ethics. We mentor the women, and then we work with communities as well to work on mindset change and listen from them. What are the real obstacles? Is it fear of an unsafe workspace, or is it being socialized as women being caretakers? So we began to work on the mindset change, and the World of Letters has evolved into an approach where we believe in ecofeminism, a world where feminist realities flourish, where resources are shared equally, and when young people can reach their potential and earth nurture all its diversity. And so this is our basic model at World of Letters. I'm going to stop sharing.
And it does take me back when I was lead specialist for gender at the World Bank in the 2000s. I did the first private sector gender plan, which Queen Rania launched. And so it's just bringing back to me, I remember going into some of the private sector organizations, and there was a law that if you had more than 20 female employees, you had to provide childcare on site, which sounded so enlightened. But all of the male CEOs said, well, of course, we only have 19 women employees. Why would we have 20? That would be extra cost. So it does just this whole point about breaking glass doors campaign. I love it. And it reminds me too, to engage you all, we are running an SDG 5 campaign in partnership with the World Bank, who do the Women, Business and the Law project. And we would love for you all to be part of that. It is really helping to promote legal reform so that we have a level playing field around the world. I love the co-feminism.
Can I just tell you that this law has changed in 2018? Now it is, yes, they've changed it. And now 15 men or women, if there are 15 children below the age of 5, then, so it's changed. We know the flaw. That's the problem, is that we need to really study the implication of changing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting when it's men and women, suddenly everything changes, and making men responsible for thinking about their role as fathers really does make a very big difference. So, that's so exciting to hear. I'm thrilled. Wonderful. I love this ecofeminism. I am definitely an ecofeminist. So thank you so much, Mayada. Now I would love to turn to Rana El-Chamaitli. And Rana is the founder of The Little Engineer from Lebanon. This also is an educational institution and focusing on pre-engineering skills. And as I was reading your application, which was so interesting, and the references to robotics and renewable energy and Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, 3D modeling, I had so many questions. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Rana, to tell us a little bit more about the inspiration for what you're doing and how, if at all, you've needed to pivot during COVID. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very glad to be with you. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm very glad to represent Lebanon and the hardest time we are passing through. So this is, maybe it will inspire you that Lebanon can still survive beside all challenges. Little Engineer was launched back in 2009 as after-school activity center for youth to teach them, to put them on the track, to let them be more decisive about what they want to do in the future. With time, I thought that it's very unfair to keep it for the people who can afford to pay only our services, because it's a paid service. Technology is very expensive, and I thought, how can I make it for everyone? I started to develop curriculum content that could be integrated in the curriculum of schools from grade 2 to grade 12, so we can prepare the most of the children to the world of tomorrow, to the fourth industrial revolution, because we believe that our education system is still a little bit retarded against what we are expecting in the near future. So you mentioned IoT. Yes, we need IoT. Coding is a language that should be taught to every child, because this is the language of tomorrow. We cannot stay behind. And I thought deeply about I'm a social entrepreneur, and I work with many other social entrepreneurs around the world in 30 countries. So I'm partnering with them so we can spread education to everyone through blending robotics, renewable energy, sustainable development goals in one content. And it could be as a vaccine to every child before heading to the secondary school to understand what is needed in the future. So I came up with a content called Sustainable Countries. It's localized for every country to tell the students about how they can serve their country, what opportunities they can find in the future, and how we can, give this content to boys and girls equally. Because, many says the engineering field is for boys. No, it's not for boys. It's equally for. So I was working on the SDG 5, SDG 4. I need quality education. And I worked heavily on partnering with social entrepreneurs like me in different countries to maximize the impact and scale fast in this content. So we are collaborating with ministries of education, with this private sector. So we're trying our best. COVID came, and it was a blessing. It was a blessing to reorganize, to pivot the business, and to have to slow down, to put a better strategy for post-corona. Corona will not last for long, but we have to keep the momentum, keep working on our strategy to scale up, and find the right partner to overcome, the challenges. Definitely, our industry is heavily impacted with COVID because it's related to schools, and schools are now, online. But during COVID, also, I thought about how to develop online courses, and I succeeded. And we launched our online platform. I launched an online business store. So it was an opportunity. We cannot stop. Entrepreneurs can never stop. They have an inside force that can always push them forward. And I believe that with the new content that we are doing, we can scale on the regional, on the global level. I'm very glad to tell you that I sold my content to New Jersey. So it's not only in the MENA region. So we are in New Jersey, and hopefully we're gonna scale up after Corona very quickly, partnering with the ministries of education. So SDG 17, to me, is one of the pillars that I'm working on. Alone, we can do nothing. So we have to be open-minded. We have to be strong enough and go into a partnership that can take us to the next level. We have many people like us, and joining forces will only make our dreams come true. And this is the Little Engineer.
Amanda, we can't hear you. Can you make sure you're unmuted?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I love this notion of SDG 17 collaborative partnerships. And it's so exciting to hear all of you talk about the ways in which you're impacting your communities. And congratulations on New Jersey. Now that's quite a feat. That's quite a distance. So there's a really good story behind that. And I love also entrepreneurs can never stop. And this is why it's so energizing. And we're seeing from Janane, and I'm probably going to pronounce this very badly, Manima in the chat saying how inspiring. We as Lebanese women are proud of you and also proud of all Arab women. So congratulations, everybody. But it truly is so inspiring. And now we come to Sana Azam, who has the Men Are Women Speakers Bureau. And I was just so excited to see the statistic that you had about 70% of speakers worldwide actually being men. And so you want to change that balance. And so would love to hear about your 1,000 women from the region strategy. Tell us more.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining as well. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, so this is a topic that's incredibly close to my heart. And even if we go back, so I'm specialized in all things public speaking and speakers. And I actually have an agency called MENA Speakers, which generally speaking, gives speakers a platform to share knowledge. And so we came across this research piece, which you mentioned, Amanda. And yes, it said that worldwide, 70% of all speakers were primarily men. And I'm gonna put my neck on the line and say Caucasian men even. And so that they were holding and owning the narrative of what knowledge is. And so I went, okay, from my experience from dealing with clients, we're presenting them a list of names and they would, just unconsciously choose all the male names and they would end up with a manel, so a male panel. And we went, no, we don't want any manels. We want diversity on the stages. And we would highlight that. In that conversation, they'd go, okay, actually, you're right. Let's bring in some women. Let's bring in people of different ethnicities. And it was like literally a 1-minute conversation of highlighting an unconscious bias that they had, and it was being addressed. So then we went, okay, well, let's look at our data because we are this biggest speaker agency in the region. And so how are the bookings looking like? Regionally, it's not a 70-30 divide. Unfortunately, it's more dire than that. So we went, all right, hold up. We need to do something about it. So on the 8th of March at International Women's Day, we launched this campaign, MENA Women Speakers, as a way to highlight that expertise and knowledge actually does come from the female voice as well. And there is a wealth of knowledge here that can be shared, as we see today with all these fantastic speakers that are women and experts in their field. And so we've been out there actually coaching and educating female speakers to go up on stage. Why is it important to have female role models? Well, we know and the research shows, like even from academia, if you have female students that are talking about their universities, then you're going to have more female students applying to a specific university. If you have women and female role models in a corporation that are in senior positions, it's going to attract more. So we wanted to showcase expertise as something that could be feminine and shared by women. And so we set that up, and we're constantly innovating in our approaches of how we can spotlight women. So our next initiative was setting up a collaborative book called Women Who Inspire. And so we have 20 authors who have signed up, and they're going to share their story of how they have won, how they're succeeding, and how they're breaking the glass ceiling. So I believe it's a combination of things, showcasing these stories, individuals, and giving them a platform to speak up when they normally wouldn't have been the ones that are shortlisted to share knowledge. And so in short, that's what MENA Speakers is, and that's what the campaign of MENA Women Speakers is, and that's what we do. And just to give you a little background to all of this, 2010, I was in my early 20s. And so I had this opportunity to share knowledge, my first speech ever in life, basically. And it was a TEDx talk. And when you're young, you're bold, you say yes to everything. And so I actually agreed to do a TEDx talk at university. And I spoke about mothers in the boardroom. And I did my research. I actually had no idea what it meant to be a mother. I do now. And so talking about gender equality, and there's a real business case, but also a humanitarian case of highlighting and spotlighting women. And so it's really important of showcasing that in the Middle East. And I know the conversation and narrative in Sweden, where I'm from, is advanced. And so there's a knowledge gap that needs to be met. And that does by highlighting conversation like we're doing, having women on this step with them.
It looks as though you have a great group of brilliant women experts to add to your list of speakers as well, Sana. And I love the point about the business case too. The data shows that a gender-informed COVID response will add $13 trillion to the global economy by 2030. So there is a very strong business case, as well as the humanitarian, human rights, etc., that we all know about so well. What an amazing array of expertise and inspiration that we have. And that's a wonderful segue to our 2018 awardee, Hadil Anabtawi, who has become a very good friend. We've been all sorts of interesting places together now, Hadil. And Hadil has also generously acted as a mentor for one of our Thunderbird students at Arizona State, who came and spent time in Jordan and in refugee camps working with Hadil. So Hadil, without further ado, I will pass the floor to you to tell us about your business and your experience during COVID too.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Amanda, for the invitation. It's great to be among these wonderful women from the Middle East. I'm Hadil Anabtawi. I'm the founder and CEO of the Alchemist Lab. The Alchemist Lab is a social enterprise focused on introducing and encouraging kids and youth towards creative and critical thinking with focus on STEM. We've been working since 2012, and it's a hybrid social model. It's a hybrid social enterprise, meaning that we work with the private sector for profit and through subsidization and grants to reach less fortunate areas and refugees. We've reached more than 34,000 children now and youth in Jordan. And we have a special program for girls called Go Girls. As Mayada said, in Jordan and in the Middle East, girls at the age of 15, actually, they outscore boys in STEM studies. However, their participation in STEM careers is less than 30%. So what we do is we have a focused program for girls in less fortunate areas, and we choose this age 12, over 12, and we choose this age because at this age, girls in these areas, they make certain decisions related to their careers and to their lives in the future. And through this program, we do STEM experiments. However, the main core of the program is to bring women role models in STEM, Arab women role model in STEM to these girls. And also we provide more information to them about options in careers, because we do believe that STEM careers is the future. And as Rana said, that the future is for technology and for STEM careers. So the more we bring women in STEM careers, the more we bring women in the workplace. And also the more we solve problems for young women in less fortunate areas, so they don't leave their villages to pursue a career or a job or a dream outside their villages. Technology might solve this for them. So I was really blessed to get the award. We Empowered Award in 2018. It was like a life-changing experience for me. It took the Alchemist Lab to another level. We've seen like a couple of years after the award, very good years, and 2019 was like the best year because we received another award from DVF during that year, and we launched the Alchemist Lab at Az-Za'atari refugee camp, the biggest refugee camp in Jordan, and that was really great. We also got funded from one of the big organizations in Jordan. However, we were hit hard by COVID-19 in March because Jordan went in a total lockdown, and we are really connected to schools, the same as Rana said, and schools were closed and they had to pivot to go online. So they have their own struggles. So we had to pivot the Alchemist Lab. What we've done is we launched our online academy in July, and basically we started to offer a part of our programs online, and we designed the experience to be a different experience than what's available online. We focus on creative and critical thinking. However, we make it a full experience where kids, they come to build a community of STEM lovers inside this platform, and also to communicate with their peers. So we focused also on STEM and the social aspect, which we believe that it's missing with all the online solutions now. Kids, they come to school to have the social contact with their peers and with their instructors. This is in brief about the Alchemist Lab. I don't know if you want me to say more about my experience and our experience with Amanda, with Maddie from Thunderbird. Actually, it was a great experience. We mentored Maddie, and we received her for 3 months in Jordan. She worked with our team. To tell you frankly, it was like a mutual learning. She learned a lot from this, and she got a lot from this experience. The exposure to the Middle East and the challenges of refugees and kids in our region. And also our team learned a lot from Maddie, and they upgraded their skills in communication and in marketing themselves, and actually they became more ambitious. Maddie is a good connector and communicator, actually, and she was able to really work with many local NGOs while she was in Jordan through the Alchemist Lab, and she was able to present us actually in a good way. And I think part of our success in reaching an agreement with UNHCR was our visit to the camp with Maddie during summer, where we did activities there. So I think it was a great experience for Maddie and for us. And we welcome also this exchange of students, mentorship, and we wish to see this in Jordan and the Middle East. So universities focus more on the need for university students to get experience by getting in touch with the marketplace and with companies from the place, from the workplace, and also with mentors from the private sector and from the public sector. And that's all for me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hadil. And you haven't talked about being the keynote at the Women's Conference for the International Leadership Association, which I think Sana would have been interested in. But just to pick up that point about mentorship, if any of you would be prepared to be a mentor, I know they have a short program. You don't have to have someone for 3 months, but you could, for example, agree to mentor somebody for a total of 3 hours. And then there is a paid, we have wonderful philanthropists at ASU, including Julie Wrigley, who has the Global Futures Laboratory. And so they provide payment for the students to then come and have a week where they come and work for you. And so you would mentor them, they would have an interest in your business, and then they would come and they would be fully paid to come and spend a week doing some kind of project for you in country. So that's something just to think about. If any of you would be interested and willing to do that, we would love to engage with you. And that really grew out of Hadil's generosity, because there are much longer internships too. And Thunderbird provides this 3-month program, and it was so successful that now we've had lots and lots of requests. Everybody said, "Oh, we've heard so much from Maddie. We all want to be mentored by women from the Middle East." So it's a big queue, and that's why they've designed a shorter program now that is literally 3 hours online, and then somebody would come and spend a week working with you in the business. So just a thought. Now, we have a question here from Inad Al-Shibli, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Oman, who asks, is there any shared difficulties within the Middle East promoting the SDGs which require a localized move? Any shared difficulties within the Middle East promoting the SDGs which requires a localized move? And I would just throw that open to the floor to see if anybody would like to tackle that question.
So I can share some.
Rana first.
Okay. Rana, do you want to go or?
Yeah. Just to let you know, I was in Lebanon. However, I was roaming in different countries in the Arab region, and through the experience, I noticed that many big companies, are tackling the SDGs in their CSR. So they are working for one goal. So it was very easy for us to collaborate, to speak the language, and to understand how we want to and why we want to collaborate, because we are aligning in the vision of implementing SDGs. So many companies are working on, let's say, giving opportunities, SDG 10, let's say. So they want equal opportunities for people in cities and rural areas. So it's there, it needs more, more elaboration, but I can feel that in the MENA region, we are fully aware that we have to consider SDGs in every move we are doing this. So I'm very glad to share this through my experience with different countries, from Oman to UAE to Saudi Arabia. So I guess it's there. Lebanon, they were working a huge, they have a huge movement about SDGs, and we have several conferences, orientation for companies. It's there. So I guess if we do not ally with each other, it's worthless. But hopefully we're gonna do it.
Thank you. And Sana?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on the same page. We even have an office here in Dubai that specifically with a committee that wants SMEs to sign on to the SDGs and commit and honor them. So of course that's there. What is noticeable is that there needs to be more examples, case studies, and inspiration of what businesses can do so that they can actually implement it. And what was nice here is that there is like a structure, and it's all done pro bono by all these women that want to support and encourage it. But then the accountability ultimately is on the owner and the organizations to actually commit to it and execute on it and honor it with like reports and follow up on it.
Thank you both. And just remembering too that the purpose of We Empower is to inspire, to invest and ignite. And this point about inspiration and role models really does make a difference. One of you mentioned earlier just the importance of seeing other women can bring about a change in terms of younger women then wanting to emulate. One of our professors has done some really interesting study on women in politics and political office globally, and there are only 8% of countries which are actually headed by women, so very low still. But they have found that where there is a country where there are women who are visible in politics, more women turn out to vote, and then more women run for office. So it has a positive effect. And I'm from Aotearoa, New Zealand. You can see my Moana amulet. And we have had 3 women prime ministers now. And our second prime minister, Helen Clark, who went on to head the UNDP, the UN Development Program, tells a wonderful story because she was prime minister for 9 years. She was at a primary school, and a little boy who was 7 years old put his hand up and he said, "Prime Minister Clark, can boys become prime ministers too, or is it only girls?" And she said that just struck her because, of course, there's been such a battle for women to get into leadership positions. It really just made her realize how important role modeling is. So thank you all for the incredible role models you are and the inspiration that you bring. And hopefully that you will be igniting a passion in other young women in seeing you to follow in your footsteps. So now I would love to ask you all, oh, sorry, Sarah, did you want to add to that? Okay, so I wanted to ask you all if you could just tell us briefly what your experience has been like as a woman trying to really do something very, very entrepreneurial. Has it been mostly a good experience? Have there been obstacles? What has your experience been as a woman leader in business? And we'll just zoom around in the same order. So Sarah, we'll start with you if you're able to unmute.
Hi, it's been a double challenge. First of all, working in the field of climate change teaches you to go in head on and be quite resilient. Because whether you're a man or a woman in the field of climate change, we're living in a world where deniers of climate change have never had a louder platform as they do today. They're environmental challenges. And being a woman, you have to be aware that that's not a gender issue. That's science, being challenged. The most group in what climate change is doing are women and children. So it's given me personally a sense of passion and a sense of resilience that you have to have this double cause. So definitely being a woman in the field of construction and building is quite rare, especially in the Middle East. And one of the things is that you tend to have your peers, your male peers, with more hands-on experience in the world of construction. It just so happens that my company has 50% women, and that's because having people on board with that sense of climate change urgency, doing something about it in a very saturated, very mature sector, the voice of women onto it. I don't know how to put it, but you definitely need a woman on board. They just have that ability to expand what they're trying to do, really home in on as many issues. I think women make very good researchers because they're able to widen what it to work. That's been a advantage. I think more women need to be more women looking at SDGs and how they relate to each other, and they're very intricate and interrelated, and bring them into their businesses. And I think just that's the way women work, in their heads anyway. So that's my on it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I really love this term, ecofeminism. I think that's my word, my takeaway from tonight. I'm an ecofeminist. I love that.
I believe when I started actually my business, I was by profession a geologist. So when I came to Jordan, I found it very, very difficult to be among very few women around me. And as a young person in my 20s, I struggled a lot. I was told that it wasn't a job for a woman and that I should leave my job to give it for somebody else who's a man. Then I realized it was embedded in the policies as well. So it's an entire struggle. Like there are very few women around you, especially if you're in an unconventional job. And as entrepreneurs, we are in the space of men, right? And as you move higher and higher, you become more and more alone. So I think it's a double struggle, being in an unconventional kind of, although we're working in education or in the health, which is more socialized for women, I just believe that we're in an unconventional space where there is a structural patriarchy that we have to, at every level, we have to overcome. And COVID-19 during the pandemic, it's like if you even look at the TVs, the leadership space, the leadership scene was all men. It was like we had to fight so much, like we had to do all these messaging and campaigning just to push ourselves in a space which was just completely dominant. Okay, it's a pandemic, it's a crisis. You women sit at home and let us deal with it. And I think so feminism and ecofeminism, which I talked about, I think we need the feminine approach towards everything, even towards policy, and feminine, soft, caring, and empathy approach. And I think that's where the world should be moving towards. And I think for a very masculine MENA region and Jordan, I think we need this feminine approach of softer, caring, which we see in New Zealand, where, the pandemic was actually.
I love that. And in fact, as a boring old economist, I'm always looking at numbers. And despite the fact that only 8% of countries are led by women, 40% of the positive responses to the campaign came from women leaders in Taiwan, in New Zealand, in the Nordic region. So very interesting to see that. And as you pointed out, Mayada, it was compassion and collaboration, listening to the science, Sarah, but they also said that it is strength. So we tend to say that compassion is a soft skill, but in fact, compassion and strength go together. And we see that these countries have been much more successful in their approach to COVID. The recent document that came out this week on human well-being showed that the 4 top countries in the world are run by women, and the 3 countries that have slid are run by men. The US has gone backwards worst, and then Brazil and Hungary. So it is fascinating to hear you say that, and it is borne out by numbers. So we do need a transformational approach, and I love the idea of compassion, collaboration, and strength going together for better outcomes. So thank you so much. Rana, moving on.
Yeah. To tell you, the entrepreneur, you know, the entrepreneur is born entrepreneur. This is what I believe. We can teach entrepreneurship, but you know, I started my first business back in 1997. I was very young, and now with Corona, I feel that entrepreneurship is more exciting. It's not challenging, because it's not a matter of rescuing ourselves or thinking a solution for ourselves. With the 30 years accumulated experience, we're thinking about the money. How can we help others? So I have to rescue my company. I have to rescue my team. I have to rescue, you know, people around us, families. Even now, the case of what Lebanon is facing, it requires a lot of entrepreneurship to help and give support and different. So I don't have to focus on my little engineer anymore. I have to focus on many things. So we have to secure, let's say, food, beverage. We have to secure the medicine, the hospitality. We have to think about, you know, education, how not to let people drop out from schools. So our brain is now working more and more. I wish I can stop it. I wish, but I cannot. So entrepreneurship is in blood, and it's really during this Corona and economic crisis, it's more exciting to generate more ideas, to think how we can sustain not ourselves only, but the money. I focused on money because entrepreneurs never thought about himself. Always we lose ourselves, we forget about ourselves, and we always think how we can help this, how can we find solution here, how we can. And to me, I'm not tired. I'm reboosting here. I relocated to Dubai just to serve better, to reflect better, and to have the ecosystem and the environment that can give, you know, allow me to survive and scale up. I don't want to step back. If I stay in Lebanon within what's happening now, it will, you know, drain my energy. I'm working from Dubai for Lebanon. I'm working from Dubai for the region. I'm working from Dubai for the world. So it's not about, you know, being, you know, selfish and saying, so I'm not happy that I left my country, but I have to do it so I can give more. And this is entrepreneurship. We don't have to step back at all.
So that whole idea of scaling and having a multiplier impact.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, I'm muting myself again. So Sana and then Hadil, and we're almost at the top of the hour. So I'm going to ask everybody to think of just one piece of advice, just 30 seconds that you would give other women who are wanting to follow in your footsteps. So Sana, any experiences that you have? I know you've shared a little bit with us. If you want to combine those two, you're most welcome.
I will. And I'll keep it concise. All right, so I come from a heavily corporate job. I was in banking that was male dominated, and then I went into gold trading, like physical gold. So obviously everyone in the room was a man, and then little old me. So the structures I've worked in, legally, you know, there were rules and regulations not allowed for sexism. However, I came across a lot of tactical, strategic, Machiavellian sexism. So the mansplaining, the belittling, the, you know, people stealing your ideas, things that weren't so tangible. And so, yes, it made me feel uncomfortable, but I'm also super happy that it happened to me because it's put me where I am today, in a place where I do train people in communication, I do train people in having executive presence, and women in particular. Like, imagine stuff as small as like your voice impacts how you're being perceived, whether it's high pitched or low pitched. So moving into entrepreneurship has been a complete blessing because I have been able to be the master of my own destiny. I'm not at the mercy of male managers or, male individuals or any form of sexism where they will dictate the outcome of my career. I'm in a situation where I run the show, my own hours. I can sit with my newborn 8-month daughter in a meeting, and I do that because my corporate culture allows for that. And so that's what I think. Entrepreneurship is such a blessing for women, and it's incredible. If you want to kind of have the work-life balance, have a family, still have a career, it allows for a lot more flexibility. The second thing I would say is get a fabulous husband. Like right now, this minute, my husband is sitting with my daughter so that I can be on this call. And he's just such a great support system for my career and a total cheerleader. And he allows for all of this to happen in tandem, and so he steps up. So those are my two absolute pointers. Run your own show if you want to have a family and a career, because you can create your own culture, and get a great husband, or a partner, let me say.
We love it. Hadil.
Okay, I'll make it short, and I really echo all the ladies. I think that when it comes to laws, there is a room for women to excel as a law, but on the ground, as Mayada said, you see during the pandemic, all partnerships, the government, the partnerships, the solutions are implemented only by male entrepreneurs. And it's sad actually, because when one of the ministers in Jordan was asked on TV why these companies in specific, he said they approached us. So I'm not sure what is reality behind this and what's going on. And I would say that women, unfortunately, as entrepreneurs, should always double the work, so people see them as solution providers, as an option to help in advancing the country. My advice to women, actually, to take risks. From my experience, I think women, they are a bit scared from risks, from the women entrepreneur around me. And also build a strong network, and don't ever feel alone, and always ask for help, and ask for help from the network that you build. I think women are, male entrepreneurs are smarter in leveraging their network, and they go ask immediately what they want. Women, they go to build the relation before asking for help. This is crisis, we're going through crisis. Women should really stand out and go ask their network for help, in order to be seen by the government and by the private sector as solution providers in the Middle East. And these are my advices, actually.
Such a lot of fantastic pieces of advice. And I see Belinda Hoff had some questions about mentoring boys that have been answered very entrepreneurially by Mayada and Ram. Thank you so much. And I see we only have a couple of minutes to the top of the hour, and we have to finish beforehand or we get cut off. Is there any last burning piece of advice that any of you would like to add to resilience, ecofeminism, multiplier impact, compassion, collaboration? Run your own show, get a fabulous husband, take risks, build a strong network, and ask for help. Fantastic. Well, you have all been amazing. Thank you so much. It's been such a privilege, having read all about you and studied your businesses, to get to meet you in person. Thank you all for everything you're doing in businesses, and for everybody else who sees you as a role model. We know that you are going to ignite lots of change everywhere, and we look forward to connecting. Oh, Igor Bobek, role models. So please read that. He's put some very nice comments in there about having the best and worst role model as women. So thank you, Igor, for joining us from Croatia. Great to have you with us. And thank you, incredible women, so much. We Empower awardees and finalists for the Middle East region. Thank you, and look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, bye-bye.